Can I please get a round of applause for actually remembering to do a thumbnail for this video? I always forget. I literally had to write it on my hand to remember because I'm a child. Welcome, friends. I'm so happy you're here for another episode. I'm Agatha. I'm a knitter and a crocheter from Minnesota in the United States, and I am super excited to show you my newest finished project. This is the Beltane sweater. I keep getting it wrong. I keep trying to call it a top. This is the Beltane sweater by Dora Violet at Witch and Hour Knits. I've got all of the pattern details, my notes, my modifications right here in my notes. Let's get into it. So Dora Violet at Witch and Hour Knits is actually a new to me designer. I'm not exactly sure how I found her on Ravelry, but I'm super happy that I did because I am super happy with my top. I did find an interview that she had with Fiverr Chats a couple years ago on YouTube. She described her creative process as always striving for having functional, beautiful garments but still provides a calming, grounding, almost meditative process. And I definitely feel like this pattern checks all of those boxes. The Beltane sweater calls for a fingering weight yarn using 6mm needles, and the designer lists the gauge as being 3.25 stitches per inch, which comes out at 13 stitches per 4 inches. And you're probably thinking that is a very odd gauge for a fingering weight yarn, and I would agree. But I found it to be extremely enjoyable to work with such fine yarn and big-ish needles. I didn't find it really hard to hit gauge. I was able to hit gauge with a few different yarns. My main issue that I encountered was finding a yarn which produced a fabric that I was happy with at that gauge. And I was able to find that with this K&C knit and crochet yarn. This is the hand-dyed cotton that I bought in Joann's maybe a year ago by now. This is the colorway Mystic Purple. I do not like this color at all. I'm not particularly a pink kind of person. I am especially not this type of pink person. The colorway is called Mystic Purple, but in person it is not purple at all. It is just a very gaudy pink, and I'm not a fan of it, but I was so happy. I'm actually really happy with this yarn, just the quality of the yarn itself. So what I did was I over dyed it, my top, using Rit dye. I used equal-ish parts black, gray, and navy blue, and I just followed the bottle instructions on the water to dye ratio. Something that I love about this pattern is that it is size inclusive. It's written for full bust measurements, anywhere from 30 inches to 60 inches, and it is built, if you, my husband is mowing right in front of the window. Let's give him a second. Water break. Go take a sip of water. Don't judge my ugly ass Trolls cup. It serves its purpose. Not everything needs to be aesthetic. All right, so I think we're in the clear. This is a size inclusive pattern, and it'll fit anywhere from 30 inches to 60 inches of full bust measurement, and it is written to be worn with zero ease. So I'm a 40-inch full bust, so I knit the size 40. Now, this is a very surprising part. This top took me only 96 grams to knit with, so that was 453 yards. This is all that's left. I did knit it with almost like a 3/4 sleeve. I don't know what you would call this. So yeah, if I had knit full sleeves, that would probably have been a different story, but I mean, that's pretty surprising. You've got to admit it. I started this project on April 2nd and I finished it on May 15th. There's no short rows in this top. I didn't really find that to be an issue. That does mean that the front and the back are exactly the same. You start with casting on the neck. You do some really rapid raglan increases at the beginning, and then you do some slower increases. I don't know if that means that this is a compound raglan. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If someone knows what this type of raglan is called, please let me know. Once you separate for the sleeves, you continue knitting the body. Once you reach a certain point, you do some waist shaping decreases. Then you knit the lace that is at the bottom of the body and you cast off. You pick up the sleeves, you do some decreases, you continue knitting just the sleeve length, and at a certain point you do some decreases, then the lace motif, and you cast off. So it is quite a straightforward pattern and it was so enjoyable. I'm so in love with my new top. It's so freaking cute. So that's it for the details. Let's move on with all of the modifications that I did for this pattern. So the first modification that I did on this top was on the lace pattern. So the way that the designer has it written is you do a knit two together, you do the lace motif, and then you do another knit two together. I just basically decided that the very first decrease would be a slip slip knit instead. So I would have a left leaning and then a right leaning. So yeah, not a big modification there. The other one was in the sleeves. I knit just 8 rows of stockinette between the first decreases and then the decreases right before the motif. And that was really just because I, at that point, still had not found something that was very convenient for knitting sleeves. I honestly don't think I have a big problem with knitting sleeves. Like, Sleeve Island is not that hard to go past for me, except because knitting with a magic circle is really just not that quick. And I just didn't have needles that. Oh, the cat is outside. Let me show you Minnie. That's Minnie. That's the barn cat that lives in our neighborhood. I like her, she's sweet, but my cats hate her guts. Bye, Minnie. Alright, so I don't know where I was, but basically what I was trying to say was I've always struggled with knitting sleeves just because I still haven't found the way that is most easy to do it for me. I have found a way now and I can't wait to show it to you. I'm going to talk about it at the last chapter of this episode. But basically, yeah, I just did 8 rows of stockinette in between decreases, and the sleeves, both of them, ended up taking only 17 grams of yarn. This is not quite a modification, but basically the pattern calls for you to use a very stretchy bind off. There's no recommendation for exactly which bind off to use, so I decided to use the Icelandic bind off. And it is a stretchy bind off. I had to go very, very loosely for it to really work perfectly and still not be constricting at all. I actually had an issue with the second sleeve that I knit where even though I felt like I went loosely enough, it was clearly not enough. It was still a little bit tight. So I had to go back, undo it, go even looser. So if you ever feel like you want to make this sweater or top, whatever you want to call it, definitely go for the stretchiest bind up you can think of because it's not going to flare out. It will look good and it will be necessary. Now, finally, the last modification was literally accidental. Basically, at the end of the lace motif, you're supposed to do a knit one, purl one row before binding off. I forgot to do it and I didn't even notice that I had missed that until after I knit both sleeves. And if I cared enough, I would go back and I would add the knit one, purl one because I did remember to do it in the body, and I feel like it helps the lace really come through and just be very easily read. And that's not really the case with the sleeves. I mean, it doesn't help that they fall right at my elbows, but yeah, they're not very readable on the sleeves for me. I don't care enough to go back and redo the super loose Icelandic bind offs. Otherwise, I would go back and fix it, but I think it's cute nonetheless. Also, one more modification that I forgot to mention was in the underarm. I decided, don't ask me why, that I wanted to have 5 stitches in between decreases. So that is why the sleeves look like that on the underside. I like the way that it looks. I think it looks good. So, all right, that's it for modifications. Now, my final thoughts on this project. This is the second time that I've had to record this because for some reason my phone crashed. I just want to say it up front so that it is very, very clear and I don't have to repeat myself 10,000 times. I am so happy that I picked this pattern to make. The reason why I picked this one up, I mean, it wasn't in my New Year knitting plans, it wasn't in my spring knitting plans. The reason why I decided to make it was because if you live in the United States, you know that in the first half of April, we had a total solar eclipse. And mid-April is my birthday. So for my birthday, we went out to Indiana and we saw the total solar eclipse. And I needed something that would be portable, easy to knit in the car, and very, very enjoyable, and also just something that would, you know, go with my style and that I would be happy to wear as a memory of that time in my life. The total solar eclipse, which I had never seen a total solar eclipse in my life before, and my birthday. It's kind of crazy because this top ended up being not just what I will remember as what I was working on for the total solar eclipse and during my birthday celebrations, but also my husband and I, we just celebrated this past weekend our first year of being married. It was our first anniversary, and we took a very last minute trip to Las Vegas. And right before the trip, I really, really pushed myself to finish this immediately because I really wanted to wear it in Las Vegas. And it worked out so freaking well because we had no clue. It turns out that on the same time that we were there, there was this massive rave festival going on in Las Vegas, and it was all everyone was talking about. So there was hundreds of girls walking around the strip in just fishnet, skimpy fishnet outfits. So I felt like I fit right in, you know? And this top just really made me feel so pretty, so cool, and also just so comfortable. It was perfect. I couldn't have asked for anything better to wear in the Las Vegas trip. Unfortunately, we were having such a fun time that I completely forgot to take any video clips of me wearing it. I only remembered to take pictures for my Ravelry project page, and even those pictures didn't even come out really good. Um, it was such a great trip, and this top was a part of it. So for this pattern, I did splurge a little bit. I When I was working on my swatches, I was using my Addy Turbo knitting needles, and I loved the Addy Turbos. They were such a breeze to work with, but I knew that I was gonna have to figure something out because those are fixed circulars on a 40-inch long cord, and it was just too long. And I definitely didn't want to be using Magic Circle or anything like that because the gauge is so large that I wanted to avoid any stretching that could occur from me stretching it out on the circular needles. So yeah, I did splurge. I bought my first set of Chagu needles. I bought Chagu Twists Mini on the large set. So it's from 5.5 millimeter up to 8 millimeter. And they were great for knitting the body, but I still found them to not be short enough, even though they're the shorties. They were just not short enough for the sleeves. I had to figure something out, and I'm very happy with what I found. So these are Prim knitting needles. They're the DPN type. I had already heard about this brand from TL Yarn Crafts. She had done a review on their crochet hooks a while ago, and I actually did not like the crochet hooks at all. But I saw these on Amazon, and even though they're plastic, I had a good feeling about them just because of the tips. So I call them nipple tips because that's what they look like. But as someone who started off as a crocheter and then became a knitter, I found these to be so freaking helpful because one of the things that I struggled the most when I started knitting was the yarn slipping off the tip. And these are were just a breeze. They were so nice. And actually, the plastic that they're made of is very, very slick. So if you're in the market for DPNs, give Prim a try. Now, like I mentioned, I did over dye this top. I did it after I had already finished knitting the entire top. It was really, really simple. It was necessary to knit a couple of sacrificial swatches. I knew that I didn't want the top to be just full on black, because sometimes I feel like jet black is too strong on me, but I like purple. I am fully cool with wearing purple, so I really like this almost tiger stripy purple situation that came out. I think that it looks really cute, and if I may say so myself, I think it looks cute on me. So, now my final thought that I have on this pattern is that if I were to do it again, I'm not usually the type of person that knits the same pattern more than once, but if one day I was so inclined to, I think that I would try to add some short rows or just do the raglan increases on what is supposed to be the back of the top differently because it does kind of warp around my arms. I don't think it's necessarily like super, super ugly, but it's different. So that's all of the thoughts that I have about this top. Again, I love it so very much. I'm so happy with it. I hope that you'll give this designer and this design a look on Ravelry. If you've made anything by Dora Violet or if you've made the Beltane sweater before, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to know your experiences. If you've made any of her other designs, I would also love to know because there are some cute stuff out there. Alrighty, folks, that is all I've got for you. If you follow me on Instagram, you may or may not have noticed, but I am no longer actively posting on there. But if you ever want to contact me, you can do so still through Instagram or through Ravelry. You can find me as Agatha Creates. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I appreciate it so much, and I hope that I'll see you next time. Bye, guys!